Welcome back to Managing Your Perimeter. I am Anna Reel, together with PJ O'Neill and Mel Lukens. We are, as always, discussing things about perimeter security, things about security in general, what we're seeing that's happening today. And obviously, as most of you know, there's a lot happening. But today, we're also welcoming a new member of our team, and that's Mike. Mike, I'm going to let you introduce yourself. We're super excited to have him on board. He's a former agent, and so I always love to have former agents join us and have on our team because they give us a really good perspective of what they've done, and then now being out of that agency, like what it's like to be out working with us little civilians out here. So anyway, go ahead, Mike, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Anna. It's a pleasure to join your team and to be on this podcast. And obviously we have a ton of things recently to talk about as far as perimeter security goes. And the two big ones, which we'll touch base on later on. And I just wanted to thank you for having me on the show, for allowing me to be on your team and be a part of your team and the important work that you all do. As we know, the Secret Service and law enforcement could not do their job without the help of the private sector and all the assets that you provide. So don't downplay yourself when you say us little civilians. So we've always said it, everyone's on the team, everyone's a part of the team. And as we saw in July, if one aspect of the team isn't working, then it just doesn't work.
Yeah. That's perfect. No, thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. Welcome. Seriously. Guys, what have you been up to? Mel, what are you doing these days? I saw you in Milwaukee. Yes. But besides that, what's going on with you?
Oh, not much. Just getting ready for another one. Heading up to Chicago.
Oh, that's good. Oh, right
things
on.
in Florida, from a current event standpoint, it's still wet. We snuck through on the kind of the east side of the tropical storm at the time, and then it turned into a hurricane just before it hit the Big Bend area, which got slammed last year as well. Other than that, it's a beautiful sunny day, hot, humid. It's typical Florida weather now.
Yeah, I know that part. I'm definitely sitting in Nashville and have been back and forth between Milwaukee, Florida, and Chicago. And it's nice to just take a little exhale for a couple days here. That's for sure. But it is hot and humid here, so not really liking that. PJ, what's going on with you?
Getting ready for Chicago. It's a gorgeous day here today. It's like mid 60s in August, which is unheard of. If this is global warming, I'm all for it.
Wow, that's a big one. Those are always big milestones, that's for sure. Okay. All right. Well, I think we should just dive into this. Just to let everybody know, when we were putting together the run a show for this, the three guys that are basically joining me on this podcast come from more of a political background than I do. So sometimes when we're putting together these things, they tend to lean more toward the current events that are on the political side. I, of course, come from the entertainment side, but as I tell my team all the time, we have to always sort of broaden our horizons here and broaden our circle and what we're going to talk about, because this podcast isn't just made for political things, although obviously, yes, we're in an election year. It is the forefront of everything, but there's so many things that are related to security that have happened. And we'll tick them off real quickly and then we'll dive into each one of them. But when we talk about what happened at Copa at the final game, when people were sneaking into that, when we talk about Taylor Swift canceling her concert in Vienna, and then of course, when we talk about the attempted assassination at the rally, those are very big situations that we all have some part of when we're putting together the perimeter security for things, or when we're working with local law enforcement about how some of these things might be mitigated. Now, again, we're not here to stop all of that. That's not our job. Our job is, like Mike was saying, working with the local law enforcement, working with the agencies to help figure out what we can do to put up a secure perimeter, and or how we can work with people when those things happen. You know, what is that response time? How are they working on that? How is the crowd doing? What is the crowd's response to this? You know, so I think, so we'll just take a step back here a minute. Let's talk about COPA a little bit, because that was very significant, because we are working on things that are going to get into the sports arena. So when I look at that and I see, you know, that people are sort of sneaking in different ways, of course, I'm like, well, yeah, because I did attend a couple of the games, and while they were lovely and people were lovely, people get excited about these things. And when they want to get in, they want to get in. I mean, we've seen this at festivals and concerts. They'll hop a fence. They'll do that. They'll get in any way they can get in if they want to see their favorite artist, favorite team play. And so I think maybe we should discuss a little bit about, like, you know, what happened down there.
That's
So I think the title for this should be is Where Entertainment and Politics Collide.
But why are they colliding though? Why do they collide?
Well, or fuse. Maybe that's a better term.
Okay. Okay.
the thing that's bananas to me with Copa is they literally gave up. It seemed from the outside, from the stories we've seen, they abandoned the ticket booth. The crowd was using bike rack to climb over the ticket booth that they abandoned. And then, so they just let people come in. And then because they got to capacity, they turned away people with actual tickets. Like families turned away, which you want to get your kids out of there because it's obviously an unruly scene, right? But you turned away your paying customers and then didn't give them refunds.
Right.
The mitigation on that, people climbing through HVAC to get in, like
Right.
tearing out HVAC and climbing in to get in. I understand you want to see your team. I mean, that's a level of devotion I don't quite have. But how in the world do you kind of abandon your post? At least it seems that way from the outside.
So who do you mean by abandon your post? The actual workers at the ticket toll, or like who abandoned their posts?
Security who just kind of, turnstiled and let people in. I mean, how do you stop an unruly crowd? That gets into a much deeper conversation, but it seems that, okay, there's video being taken of people climbing the HVAC. There's video of people using the bike rack to climb over the ticket window building. Was security not there to stop that?
So I think PJ, the number one word in all of these things, and I know we talked about how politics are colliding with pop culture, with entertainment. They all go hand in hand, because I think from all these events that we learn from everything. There's a lot that the Secret Service can learn from what happened in Copa. There's a lot that the Secret Service can learn from what the authorities did in Vienna to probably save thousands of lives. So the number one word that I would say in all of this that's the most important is intelligence. So intelligence drives everything. So I think that number one, in Copa Miami, they didn't have enough resources. So either they didn't have enough intelligence, or they didn't put enough resources towards intelligence, didn't gather the intelligence to enable them to be prepared for this event. We can even go back to January 6th. And I think the intelligence for what was going to happen was off with what happened there. Same as Copa. They just didn't, they weren't prepared for what happened. And protection, every aspect of protection is one of my bosses a long time ago in the Secret Service told me that protection is a thinking man's game. And he was absolutely right. Like, the advance is so important. I know that in Miami they had a few games for Copa before that and felt like they were prepared. And I remember Anna harping on it, like they haven't seen this kind of thing, like they don't know what they're in store for. And I think that they didn't have enough resources for what happened. And then they you end up getting overran. And you probably have people there in positions that just weren't, probably didn't have the training and experience to handle what was about to happen.
Yeah, I'll give it to you that resource is probably a big part of this. Because yeah, I did sit down with one of the teams very, very early on before all of these games started and, put together a bit of a proposal to have security. And it was more manpower security than it was actual assets on things. Even though I would have added to that the layer of assets before they got to a situation like what we saw on videos. But I think resources plays a lot into that. I think, we find this with a lot of things. We find this in the entertainment world. We find this in the advanced world. We find this in political. We find it. Nobody wants to spend the money. Nobody wants to do it. Nobody wants to add to it, and then we get in a situation where it's like you could have just a few more people, a few more this, a few more layers of, like I was saying, assets or, people resources, help. They help. Do they stop all of it? No, they don't, but they help, and so I think, we said this at the beginning of the year. I think when people are looking at their budgets for things, they really need to not make security the bottom thing. It can't be the last thing you're thinking about. It has to be up there with how you're prepping your site, the rallies, the concerts, the festivals. Like, how are you prepping your site to make sure that it's safe in and out? And it can't be that line item that gets slashed immediately. It's just,
and there's another aspect to this too. And we've all done this: is plan for the worst and hope for the best. But in planning for the worst, you've got to really kind of think out of the box. What's the very worst thing that could happen? Our ticket booths could be overrun. Our gates could be overrun. Okay, now how do you secure for that? The budget question becomes almost a separate issue. And it's like when you present this, you say, okay, here's the worst thing that could happen. We could be totally overrun by spectators at our turnstiles, at our ticket booths. How do we plan for that? And here's the cost. And do you guys want to accept that risk for not providing that option?
Right. No, totally agree with you. I mean, we find this even when we're building the big events, right? When we go in and we build the big city events, and we're working with local law enforcement, and we'll tell them that, you might need some extra pieces of concrete here. And, this is where we can see people might get in on a sidewalk, or we might need to reinforce and fortify, either fencing or the bike rack or whatever it is, a tent, all of it. And, the famous last words are, "Oh, that'll never happen. Oh, that won't happen." And every time I hear them say it, I go, "Well, now you need to put it, because now you've literally just told everyone that it can happen." And it's not that I'm wishing it. It's not that I want people to spend thousands, in fact, millions of dollars, on product that they think they're not going to need. And maybe in the end, they didn't really need it to be absolutely fortified like that. But the risk we're taking right now in this climate is just unprecedented. I mean, we should not be taking that risk.
But further to that point, and kind of the big takeaway is, how many years collectively have all of us been doing this?
Yeah.
And again, no disrespect intended to our clients, but a lot of times, sometimes, there's somebody that, for whatever reason, doesn't want to hear other options and or risks.
Right.
And so it gets as Anna just said, "Oh, that'll never happen." And that, that juice ain't worth the squeeze.
Yeah.
And that's fine, but now they've got responsibility. What we bring to the table, and increasingly so with Mike joining, by the way, welcome. I know I've said that before, is a subject matter expertise that really is, and I'm tooting our horn here, is unparalleled in this industry.
Correct.
It's the old, if you bring your umbrella, it won't rain. When you don't bring it, it rains.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you all hit it right on the head. A big driver in this is always budget. It's always going to be budget. Budget's a big driver, and what we do in the Secret Service, what I did in my career as a police officer, and then with the Secret Service, and then it all comes back to that, and then also what you do with your budget during the advance. You have X amount of resources, and you have to make do with a lot of times make do with the resources that you're given. As far as, and resources can be barricades, fencing, bike rack, personnel, manpower, because a lot of times, like, hey, we don't really want to put anti-scale fence here. So what do? Well, then you post it with a person.
Right.
And then so that can happen. So the number one thing during an advance, you guys have done a ton of advanced work. I've done a ton of advanced work. And the number one thing you're concentrating on is you want to prevent an unwanted outcome.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what you're doing. So
I was going to say line of sight mitigation, but that is a segue to another part that we'll talk about, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of ways that we can talk to our clients without, feeling like we're over exaggerating, and I always say to them, I know what I'm presenting to you is not the sexy part. This is not the fun part. We're not in here to come, tell you that you can't have fun. Our job and what we do out there and what we do with our clients is basically say to them, this is great. We want to make sure everybody has a good time, regardless of what the event is. We want to make sure that it goes off without a hitch. But here are some ways that we can tell you to help make it safe, for everyone, for the people, the artists, the people involved in it, the protectees, every single one of them, and your guests. Right. I mean, that's our job. Our job is to be able to go in there and have these difficult conversations that really nobody wants to have. Like they just don't want to have them. They're not sexy. They're not fun. They're like, oh, you're raining on our parade. I'm like, well, I'd rather rain on your parade than something happen, kind of thing.
Right, and they're looking at it from a microcosm, or from a micro standpoint. And our view has always been they're looking at the boots on the ground. We're looking at a 30,000 foot level. But what we bring between boots and 30,000 feet is it's not specific to a particular event, but it is specific to safety, risk, and acknowledgement of cost.
Yep. 100%. So I guess that kind of, we saw COPA and we saw what happened with that. And then we saw the attempted assassination, obviously all over TV. It was all over TV. There are lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of theories. I know, Mike, that you've been able to have some other conversations. I really, truly don't want to use this podcast to point fingers at anyone. We've all been in the situation where we've had to do advance work at those rallies. Every single one of us on this podcast has done this. We know what they're looking for. We know what the client's looking for. We know what we're looking for. We also know that, sometimes we're out there and we're given a certain task that we have to do, and we're kind of blind, what am I calling these things? Those things.
Let's go with we're laser focused.
Yes, we're laser focused, but we're on the task that we're given. So let's just say that I was a press lead out there, what am I looking at? I'm looking at where I'm taking my press. I'm looking at how I'm setting up my press. I'm looking at, certain, for lack of better words here, shots that my press is going to, have to make it, a good photo op for things.
Having the right press passes.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's lots of people. There's lots of people out there that have specific jobs to do. And, collectively as a whole, you would hope that something like what happened doesn't get missed or whatever. And again, I will not use this podcast to point the fingers. I will just say that was, for us in this, having done it, extremely eye-opening and very much of, oh my God, like, wow. Like, how did that?
So Anna and PJ both bring a a very specific type of advance into the mix. And having done it at the staff level and, directly with the White House and working with the agents, I mean, one of the things that always gets considered is line of sight. And again, I'm not going down the rabbit hole on this, but
Right.
we practice. I mean, I can remember numerous occasions where in working with the Secret Service, they would request a banner, a set of bleachers, something to block a particular what they considered vulnerability to mitigate line of sight. And again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole on the assassination attempt, but it is a standard part of the collaboration between Secret Service and staff, whether it's White House level, whether it's campaign level. Anytime there's a protectee involved, it's a topic of discussion.
No, I completely understood. And that's what I was saying. I think when we all saw it, when we all heard about it, when I watched and rewatched, I mean, my eyes were just really wide because I was like, my first thought was this could have been any one of us there. And then my second one was, wow, how
I thought it wasn't any one of us there.
But then the other side to it is, so PJ, you've got a daughter now that's out on the campaign, and
Yep.
they stepped up their safety level, I think. I mean, you can explain what your daughter shared.
So what they've issued to staff are bulletproof vests. If they're going to be on site, they wear them. If the protectee wears it. And literally, she sent me a picture of her modeling it.
So here's the deal. Here's what I always say when we're working these events. We're always advancing the events and we're working with our clients and everything. And everybody's not happy-go-lucky, but we're all pretty focused. But there's a level of levity, whatever the word is, in there that we can still have conversations. The minute I see any of those agencies come to meet me in a bulletproof vest, I know we've changed. The dynamic has changed. There's something that they're dealing with that we're not privy to, but the minute I see it, I know it's changed. And if it's not on game day and it's happening days prior to it, then I know there's intel that they're not sharing that I'm okay, not really knowing about, but I do know that the level has changed. And so I think in this instance, what you're sharing is that the level has now changed. What they're saying to now these campaign staff is, okay, here's what we're going to do to protect you the best way we can while you're out advancing it. And I think that's the way we should position this conversation. And that's why I've been trying to steer this a little bit, that there are steps being taken. We are intimate. We know people on the Trump campaign, so we're privy to hearing those things and seeing those things. I'm certain, on the other side, that they're also taking those steps as well, and that's the most important thing that we should be sharing on this podcast, that something happened. And rather than people just saying, okay, well, we'll just, like Mel was saying, we're going to make sure that the sight lines are good and we're going to make sure these are good. Well, we need to take care of our staff. We've got to take care of the people that are putting all this together. We can't just be thinking about, yes, we think about the protectee that's up on the stage, but if we don't have our staff to put it together, if we don't have us putting this together, like, this is not happening. They're not able to put those things on. I mean, we had situations going on for us in Milwaukee, and I pulled our team together because, locals aren't happy when you go into a city and you start building all this stuff and messing up their roads and their infrastructure, and they're late to work and they get, and they're just screaming at us while we're trying to set things up. But I pulled our team together and I just said, your safety is my concern. I don't care what happens out there. We'll hear if something's going on, but your safety, you work for Arcus, you're coming in to help Arcus put all this together. That is my concern. My concern is not whether or not I have the right fencing up at this moment. My concern is, are you okay being out here? So when we hear about the attempted assassinations while we're out there working. I told my staff, if you can't be here, if this doesn't feel good to you, tell me. You can go home. It's okay. And I think that that's the human part of this, that we have to make sure that, when we are talking to our clients, that we get that part, that it isn't just about the brick and mortar that we're putting together for them, that we understand this. And so what I liked about your story, PJ, is that the campaign recognized it, and they took steps, and they said to their staff, we're watching out for you too. And I think that's extremely important. So when there are situations like you talked about COPA, someone leaving their post, someone didn't feel safe. They didn't feel safe, so they left their post. And that's, in certain situations, it's like, it's okay. Leave your post. If that crowd is unruly and coming at you and you're getting out of there and you don't have a gun, leave your post,
It's the old Animal House, right? With Kevin Bacon, remain calm, all is well.
Yeah, and take into consideration that the individual at the post, the security guard, I mean, he's probably not getting paid a whole lot of money to stop hundreds of people from coming through his post. With it coupled with, like Anna said, without having any type of weapon, probably, and that kind of thing.
I think my criticism on that is less on, that guy who's the security guard who, to your point, is not making a lot of money, who's just, there for a gig, for a job. It's not on him abandoning his post. I think it goes back to what we discussed, is the overall planning, that they just weren't prepared to be overrun. I think that's where my slam is. It's not on the individual security guard that left his post. It's really not. It's really on.
Absolutely.
They weren't ready, even though they knew. Like you see in soccer or football, whatever you want to call it, around the world, people flood those things. And if you're not prepared.
Right.
PJ, but what you're saying is it's a failure to plan.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
But you can take that moniker and apply it, unfortunately, to current events that have happened within the last few weeks. And, it goes back to the old saying, we've said it on this show, I don't know how many times. What we do, whether it's political advance, working with the Secret Service, we have to be right 100% of the time. Bad guys only have to be right once.
Which I think is a phenomenal segue into the Taylor Swift thing. I mean, and goes back to, Mike, what you said, intelligence. I mean, holy cow, they sussed this thing out. That's a bombshell, excuse the pun. I mean, that's amazing. Yeah, I know. Sorry. I mean,
explosive.
Yeah. I mean, holy cow.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the law enforcement and intelligence community. Really, that's how you have to collaborate and working together. And I can only imagine the information sharing that was going on. Maybe Interpol was involved, that kind of thing, in order to flush this out. So they had 2 arrests. I understand they arrested a 18-year-old today as well. And so that was a thing, like, hey, it's not just a thing. Well, why did you cancel the concert? Because the people were arrested. Well, I think obviously they had additional intelligence that, they're not going to share all of what they have with the media. And so, that's why they made the call and canceled the 3-day event there. And it was absolutely the right call. Now, on the flip side of that, I don't think that, can you all imagine, how much intelligence about terrorist activity does the Secret Service get on a daily, right? And so we don't necessarily have the luxury. So talk about the RNC, the DNC 4-day events. Can you imagine that ever being totally shut down because of adverse intelligence? I don't think it would.
Well, even during COVID, when everything was shut down, it still went on. It was a different way.
Well, they shrunk it, obviously. I mean, they shrunk the perimeter.
Right.
But here, and this is what I said to everybody. I'm like, if we are getting the mainstream media gave us all the information and everything got shut down and everything got canceled. I'm like, that means that it was 3-4 times bigger than what we've been told. Like
Yeah,
what we
absolutely.
found out is a lot bigger than what was shared with the media. And shutting down, that venue for 3 days, I was like, yeah, that just means the story is much bigger than we probably than I want to know about right now, just so everybody knows. Like, I don't need to know all those details. I need to know that they made that decision, they collectively made that decision, and they stopped that tour. And that to me was like, that's amazing. I love that. I loved like you're saying, Mike, speculating all the agencies that were involved in that decision, because that's what needs to happen. All of these agencies need to have these conversations. That's what needs to happen. That's how we can, hopefully, try and stop some of this. I mean, is it going to stop all of it? No. I mean, there's other world stages going on. We still have the Olympics going on. We still have all of these things. The US is going to be a very big focal point the next 3 years, right? Between the soccer games and then the Olympics coming here. Those conversations need to be, they have to be having right now. And I know
Yeah.
they're not, no one is ignoring this. Everyone is paying attention to this, but, for me, and we all know this and we repeating myself. I mean, I've got a son that's out on tour, and I literally said to him, look, that Taylor Swift thing is no joke. Like, you guys have to be paying attention. You're playing in stadiums, you're playing in small clubs, you're playing in, places where, there's crowds. The whole point of the bad actors is they want the crowd. They need a crowd. The crowd is what makes this more sensationalized for them and what they're trying to accomplish. So we can only do as much as we can when we're out there. We can only, again, talk to our clients as much as we can. But the Taylor Swift thing to me was, okay, everybody wake up. Like, you can't fall asleep at this. Like, we're in summer, we're at the peak of festivals. Don't fall asleep. This isn't the time to get tired out there. These tours that have had like 80 shows already, and they've got another 80 to go with all these festivals. It's like, now's the time you rejuvenate yourselves, look at all of this, check your security things again, and just pay attention, because what do we have coming up? We've got more festivals. We've got a boat ton of rallies coming up, and all of that, and it's a whole trickle down thing, right? We're going to talk about resources again. It's like the manpower, the resources, the this, the that, all of that, to help make sure all of these different stages are safe, and different sites are safe.
I'm hopeful that this Taylor Swift thing has caused people to wake up. You've even, in stories reporting on it, you've even got the media saying concerts and festivals are the ultimate soft target.
Yeah.
To your point, Anna, it's because there's not even remotely the level of security, and so hopefully everyone's eyes widened.
Right.
Yours did.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big part of your of the advanced work leading up to events is you're never going to eliminate a threat. Right. What we want to do is mitigate the risk of the threat. And there's many different ways to do that. I would actually suggest that in Vienna, they actually eliminated the threat at that venue because they canceled it. So, I mean, I guess that's one way to do it. But, you look at a lot of the things we've mentioned line of sight before. That's always an issue, and not getting into the event, because there's been, I think, hundreds of retired brothers have been doing the TV circuit, chiming in and saying, really what I mean, you don't really have to have a lot of experience to figure out what the heck happened. There, but when you're figuring out, mitigation and line of sight, how to mitigate it, as we said, we all have, I mean, at Arcus Group, we have the tools to definitely mitigate any line of sight issues. And, I would say, the ultimate line of sight issue that I can remember in my career was election night 2008, when I was the counter sniper response team for Obama's speech at Grant Park.
Mhm.
And, PJ, you're a Chicago guy. I mean, you can imagine, I mean, the line, you're looking at every skyscraper had a line of sight at the venue. And so, you're never, I guess what I'm getting at is you're never going to eliminate, as I said, every risk, but you're definitely going to mitigate it. And the way we did it there in Grant Park that day is we just had a lot of counter sniper response teams and coordination, and the whole key, guys, is communication too. We all know, I mean, there's some communication breakdowns, but the communication between the private sector, between local law enforcement and federal law enforcement is just crucial,
Yeah.
especially at those, at the big events, at the rallies. The communication just has to be there. And like I said at the beginning, we're all on the same team. We're all one team. So there's no, us little civilians. And so it's just really, it's a collective effort by everybody to ensure the safety of, if there's a protectee, but, also, I mean, ensuring that the public safety
Right.
is huge.
Right. I think all of these, so these three particular events, right, that we brought up in this, for me, it should be, it's the wake up call. It's the pay attention. It's you guys, seriously, like this, they're not going to stop trying to figure out, how to target the US. I mean, they're just not, they're not going to stop trying to figure out how to target these mass crowds. I mean, this is unfortunate, but this is the world we live in. This is what we need to be paying attention to. So, I mean, I go back to, again, just, I know I repeat myself a lot on this, but, when we have to talk about these things with our clients, they don't want to hear this. This is not something that they want to talk about, but that's okay. This is what we do. This is what we do best. This is what we do for them and with them. And communication is 100% key in this, whether that's between us and them and, local agencies, however it works. It's as long as there's an open dialogue about all of this, as long as there's communication. And to be honest with you, as long as there's people like us that are out there continuing to push this dialogue and continuing to be willing to have these conversations, this is okay. I mean, I don't mind having these conversations. I don't mind having them with my friends. I don't mind having them in social situations. I'm not out there like the wet blanket or anything, telling everybody to run around in a bulletproof vest all the time. But I do tell people when they tell me that they're going to travel, internationally, and they're going to like Middle East countries, and they think, we're just going to make it like me and my little girlfriend going around. I'm like, okay, but you just better remember you're in a Middle East country. Just start there. Just start with the fact that you're traveling to a Middle East country alone with your girlfriend. Right there. Let's just go there.
If you're having that conversation, though, the way to mitigate that, really easy, don't go.
Well, but I mean, but obviously, so I like to travel. I mean, you all know that. I mean,
Yep.
I've been to 99 countries. I'm not going to not stop traveling, but situational awareness in all of these things for us, the little civilians, for our friends that are out there trying to do these things, this is very, very key to this. The communication, the situational awareness.
You know how to go into it eyes wide open.
Yeah.
There are not everybody is like us, and thank God for it. But we look at things a lot differently than normal people.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not normal.
Yeah, so I'll stipulate that up front. But I mean, when you go into the whole, I can't tell you how many times, and I know I brought this up before, and I sound like a broken record, but line of sight issues. We have the ability, because of our collective experience, to think out of the box.
Yeah.
And it's not like a decision of going to an indoor venue versus an outdoor venue. There are ways to creatively, and where entertainment and politics collide, there are ways to creatively come up with solutions that are not, putting the protectee in a, full ballistic plexiglass
Right.
bubble.
Right.
Cranes and flags and banners, and, they're just, we have that experience and that expertise.
Right. No, I agree with you. And I don't think they're colliding, Mel, but on the entertainment side, I mean, it's the same thing. I will say that on the entertainment side, I've been hearing from my colleagues that they are taking steps to sweep tour buses before they go backstage. Not all bands and crews like this, because sometimes it means that they're having to wake up people because they arrive on site typically very early and stay until they have to load in or go to their sound checks and things. So they're not always liking it, but and I think unfortunately, the more we see things happening like in Vienna that, they're trying to stop, or, if anything does happen here in the US, then people will be like, you could sweep my bus all you want. You can wake us up all you want, the venues and the promoters and these people are now taking responsibility for that, which I really like to see. I think the Travis Scott thing was a big deal, and that was a lot of pushback on them when that happened. And so to me, they're making concerted efforts to show them that, again, we care about you. You're coming to perform for us. We care about you. We're going to make sure that our venue is safe for you to perform at. And here's the ways that we're going to do it. They won't always be fun ways, but this is what we're doing. So I do like seeing that. I like hearing about the bulletproof vests on your daughter. I mean, I don't care about that. I think that that's what needs to happen. It's just the times we're living in.
I'm taking my body armor to Chicago.
Yeah. Well,
you should do that anyway, Mel. I mean, it's Chicago.
Yeah.
Well, good point.
No. Don't say that. Don't say that, because they've taken really good steps to make sure that Chicago is going to be safe. I mean, there's a lot of permits being pulled for things, but, we all know what these conventions are like. We know what people are like, and we know how radical people can get with things. And Chicago, like Milwaukee, are taking the steps to make sure that, that attendees and the protectees and everyone is as safe as possible, staff, volunteers, all of it. So that's wonderful to see. I mean, those are big cities that they're working with. So it's nice to see that it's in it. And, we all have a little piece of it, and that's what keeps us going, and be able to have these conversations. But I think the biggest part that all of us have said in different ways on this is, the communication, situational awareness, being able to convey that message to our clients, staying on top of it. I mean, our job is to be informed as we are. Pop culture is pop culture. I mean, it's out there for a reason. I'm not a huge fan of mainstream media for very obvious reasons. They tend to slant things and put things. But I will say, with the Taylor Swift thing, I was actually fairly pleased with how it all came out and the way they handled it. They really didn't overblow it the way that they have in certain other things. I think they were probably all caught by surprise that 3 days of concerts were canceled in a beautiful city. I mean, a city that's not known for any type of violence like that. It's a very peaceful, beautiful city and country. So, I think people were taken back, but I was thrilled to see that steps were taken. So I think as we wrap this up today, Mel, Mike, you have the most experience with this. Is there anything that we're missing? Anything we should be paying more attention to? Anything you think that we should say to our clients about things?
I think from here, the number one thing is that we learn from every event, right? So everything that happens, we learn and we get better.
Yeah.
Right. And if we're not getting better, then what are we doing? And we've all hit it on the head here. There's a couple crucial things: intelligence, communication, the advance work, and advance work is a part of entertainment events too. When you're putting together those big events. But I think that you look at how, if you look at all the events through history, especially with my agency that I retired from, after the Kennedy assassination, they put together the Warren Commission. So my agency, until then, we didn't have a protective intelligence division until after the Warren Commission. So there wasn't even an intelligence advance up until then. And so then the Protective Intelligence Division was formed as a result of that, and started sending out an advance agent as part of the advance team, the special teams, to to conduct that portion of the advance for all the president's visits, domestically and foreign. And so that's something, and obviously we learned from the the Reagan assassination attempt, and we're going to learn from this as well. There's also a lot of other there's a lot of other events that also occurred that the general public doesn't know about,
right,
that unfortunately I can't really share, but there's a lot of things that we've prevented over the years, and that we've also learned from to get better.
Yeah.
So I think the main thing is just, from here, learning and from every event, and getting better and going out there. And at the end of the day, we're going to do our thing at Arcus Group, and we're going to provide the best resources that we can. And again, resources come in many different ways, as far as it could be a person, it could be a barricade, it could be a fence, a lot of different things. And it's a total collaborative effort between everybody to ensure the public safety at these events coming up.
Yep, that's perfect. And just a very side note. So when we brought Mike on board to work with us, we were all very well versed in all the acronyms and everything that the government uses. And he was thrilled, of course, that we knew a lot of the stuff going on. But the learning curve for Mike has been understanding the assets of things. And so we've included him on everything. We put him on all the emails, and we're basically like, Mike, just follow along. It will all make that sense, because you have seen the events put together from the outside, but you've not seen them sort of put together from our perspective when we're getting bids and quotes. And, again, we have to bid on like bike rack and barricade and tents and concrete and all of this. So I know that Mike has had a learning curve with all of this, but you've done extremely well, Mike. And so we're thrilled to have you here. I'm happy that you're on board with us. You definitely bring an expertise and background that, while we understand, a small piece of it, we at least understand a little bit of the thinking, and how we've all been able to collaborate and make this all happen. So I think for now, we'll end this, you guys. It was a good conversation. I'm glad we had it. I like to push the envelope a little bit. I do like to spar a little bit when it comes to the political conversations about things. But for the most part, to our listeners, look, what we try to share with you is everything that we think we can bring to the table to help you when you're planning all these things, when you have a question about it. That's what we're here for. My phone rings all the time. People call us about different things all the time. And it could be, from the smallest thing, even if it's not exactly event related. We do get a lot of phone calls right now that are about safety and security, and that's great. I'm glad that when we built this business, that's what we wanted to get to. That's what we wanted this podcast to be about. that people would begin to have, conversations about it and engage in them. And you could push back on us. Give us your opinion on this. We're okay with that. We claim to be experts on things that we know about. You could be coming from a different perspective. We're happy to take that perspective.
It's called collaboration.
Right, 100%. So anyway, I think for now, we're going to go out there and finish it. We've got a busy summer ahead of us. Like I said, it's an election year, but the world's not stopping. Entertainment is still going. Soccer games are still going on. Football games, basketball soon. All of it. They're all happening. Schools are starting back up. We'll have that conversation again. We'll bring Jason back. We'll bring him back because we are doing the back to school thing. So. But that's what's in people's minds. PJ, we want your daughter to stay safe out there. She is in, a very interesting position, a very cool position. We know that position, but we want her to be safe out there. So again,
Yep.
glad to see they're taking those steps out there. Mel, I'll probably see you in Chicago in a week or so. But you also stay safe out there. Mike, eventually we'll have you join us out there. While we're working on these things, and that I think we're only getting better at this, you guys. Like Mike said, all of these events just make us better. They make us better to have a conversation. They make us better when we're talking to our client. They make us better to understand situational awareness and all of these things. But for now, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate all your time, and I will see you all again very soon. Please stay safe out there. Bye.